and a very warm welcome. You're watching GRAVITAS. I'm Moni Kampi. Let's get started. Will the Russia-Ukraine war end soon? Will one of the most asked questions over the last 4 years finally have an answer? Well, Zelensky has called for direct engagement with Putin after the US-led negotiations failed to yield results. He has called for a meeting in a rare open letter. How exactly has Russia reacted, though? What about Donald Trump? Will the Russia-Ukraine war end soon, or will the deadlock continue? That's coming up shortly. Also on the show for you tonight, as the West Asia tensions explode and the ceasefire hangs by a thread, where are things headed? We get you a closer look at the situation on the ground in the UK in the aftermath of the Henry Novak murder. All this and lots more coming up. Is the Russia-Ukraine war about to end? That might be the most asked question over the last 4 years since the war started. But is there a clear answer yet on the horizon? Both Putin and Zelensky seem to be sending out a crucial message. In fact, Zelensky has written a rare open letter to Putin, in which Zelensky has proposed a face-to-face meeting with Putin. In the letter, Zelensky also said that Ukraine proposes ending the war through direct engagement and that he is proposing a meeting, saying that he proposes to set a clear date for such a meeting, adding that Ukraine is ready for a full ceasefire for the duration of the negotiations. In fact, Zelensky did not hold back in that letter, also saying that after 26 years in power, age is beginning to take its toll on Putin, quote unquote, among other things, also expressing his frustration, apparently, saying it would be wrong to simply wait until the war in Europe returns to the center of its attention. That's as clear as he could be. What did Trump have to say in reaction to the letter? Remember, he has pushed both sides to end the conflict earlier, also claiming that he could end the war within a day of taking office. That clearly has not happened, and the war has dragged on for 4 years. Trump has said he thinks it would be great if the two leaders met. They should get it done, is what he has said. Remember, months of the US-led negotiations have failed to bring the sides close to an agreement. For now, Trump sounds optimistic, but will the meeting happen is the immediate question. Earlier, the Kremlin said Putin had not yet been shown the letter, but that Zelensky could meet Putin in Moscow any time. Interestingly, that is a proposal that the Ukrainian leader preemptively has ruled out in his letter. And speaking in St. Petersburg just before Zelensky's appeal was published, Putin had repeated his frequent questioning of the Ukrainian leader's legitimacy, so that tough stance had remained. But speaking to journalists, Putin also later said he was certainly prepared and willing to reach an agreement with Ukraine, also saying compromises needed to be made. He suggested that as Trump was busy with Iran, the EU could talk Zelensky into surrendering territory. So that's his messaging. And while a big question mark remains over whether the two leaders will actually meet, it's also the tone and the timing of the statements that's standing out for multiple reasons. Are these clear indications of how the war fatigue is impacting both sides, perhaps? What's really changed as far as the sticking points are concerned? For instance, remember, Russia's stance has been that Ukraine pull out of its eastern Donbas region as a precondition to the peace talks. In fact, Putin's long-standing position has been that Ukraine should withdraw from Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, and give up its efforts to join the NATO. The messaging from Zelensky is also about how America's attention remains largely on Iran and what that means for the Ukraine war. And the core aspect there remains air defenses. Russia's air attacks have grown in sheer volume in recent months, remember, aiming to overwhelm the Ukrainian air defenses. Even experts have called it the overwhelm approach, as it's called. And Ukraine has been feeling the heat. But very significantly, Putin has also accepted that Russia needs to improve its air defense systems. He was speaking a day after the Ukrainian drones struck an oil terminal and naval base in St. Petersburg, just as the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum opened. In fact, Ukraine has intensified its long-range retaliatory strikes on Russian energy and military targets in recent months. These are attacks it calls a fair response to nightly barrages by Russia's army. Remember, Zelensky has repeatedly requested for advanced F-35 Lightning warplanes to counter the Russian Air Force. Ukraine has also said it will make the Swedish fighter jets as a backbone of its air force to confront Russia. At the same time, Putin claimed that Russia had not yet used its Oreshnik hypersonic missile against Ukraine in real combat conditions, but had only tried it out to observe the results. So it remains to be seen if an end to the war is actually on the horizon or these developments turn out to be a mirage. And the developments so far, while they show signs of optimism, will they actually yield any breakthrough? Washington once again at the center of major transformation plans as President Trump unveils a new construction project aimed at redesigning part of the National Mall. And this comes even as questions continue to mount over his political standing and public image. Trump proposing a pedestrian promenade that would basically connect the National Mall with the Potomac River. It will be named the Trump Promenade. The proposed walkway would run alongside the Lincoln Memorial and cross over two major roadways. The announcement was made alongside the Interior Secretary. In fact, he says the promenade would link the back of the Lincoln Memorial directly to the river and form part of the historic Macmillan Plan, which was the early 20th century blueprint basically for the National Mall. The project is the latest in a series of Washington construction initiatives from Trump. Recently, a proposed renovation of the Lincoln Memorial's reflecting pool and the demolition of the east wing of the White House to make way for a 90,000 square foot ballroom complex. The attempt, when it comes to Trump's show, also coming at a time when his public approval ratings have fallen to the lowest level, according to an analysis by The Economist using YouGov polling data. His net approval standing at minus 25 percentage points, making him the most unpopular president in the history of the poll. The tracker has been monitoring presidential job performance since the year 2009. The analysis also showing his lowest ratings are on inflation and prices. Where his net score standing at minus 43%, he performs better on issues including jobs and the economy, foreign policy, immigration, and crime. But overall, public approval remains deeply negative. And Trump's approval ratings are not a reflection of his self-focused public presence, it seems. From his recent inaugural speech of the Gaza Peace Board to his meetings with the leaders and his chest-thumping claims on Iran, Trump has consistently maintained a high global profile, or at least tried to. marked by personal branding, a lot of self-promotion. Recently, questions have also been raised over his frequent use of his Truth social platform, where he has been posting extensively on various issues ranging from Iran to Joe Biden, his own comparisons with previous presidents, including discussions involving Mount Rushmore, just to name a few. And the sheer volume of that content has drawn attention towards the scale of his online activity itself. For context, the average person spends about 2.5 hours daily on social media, while brands typically post once a day, perhaps, news organizations around 12 times daily, reportedly, on an average. So with Trump's new projects at the face of the Capitol and his frenzy of the digital post laced with his shrinking approval ratings, concerns still remain over his vision for the United States. On to the UK now. Outrage over the murder of Henry Novak has taken a new dimension. Fear is growing within Southampton's Sikh community, reportedly. This after the 23-year-old, who was a Sikh himself, was jailed for murdering 18-year-old Novak. Community leaders reportedly say many Sikhs are now reluctant to leave their homes, with some afraid to walk to the local gurudwaras or allow elderly relatives out alone. According to a report in The Times, members of the community have faced racial abuse allegedly in workplaces and public spaces, raising concerns over their safety and well-being, reportedly. The report says a memorial event for a Sikh community leader was cancelled after the organizers said they were worried about the health and safety of the staff and the community. Remember, Digba was imprisoned for life on Monday. He was found guilty of fatally stabbing Novak with the Sikh ceremonial knife called kirpan, before telling the police that Novak had racially attacked him. Police body cam footage showed a dying Novak being handcuffed and arrested for assault, despite telling the officers he cannot breathe. Novak repeatedly told the police he had been stabbed, to which one officer responded, I'm quoting, "I don't think you have, mate," quote unquote. In fact, Novak died on the street after bleeding to death. Novak's mother, father, stepmother met the UK Prime Minister on Thursday. After the meeting, Starmer said that the country must choose unity and progress over division and hatred, calling it the only way to honor Henry Novak's memory. And Starmer also lashed out at the US tech tycoon Elon Musk for attempting to, what he says, whip up division in Britain, allegedly.
Look, we need to also assert who we are as a country, because Musk, again, has been interfering in our politics in the last few days, trying to whip up division. That is not who we are in Britain. In Britain, we are reasonable, tolerant people. When we have a terrible case like Henry's case, Henry Novak, we react calmly, as his family have done. When it comes to disgusting images on Grok, we take Grok on and fight, because that's who we are as a country.
Elon Musk, the owner of X and prominent Starmer critic, as he's also been referred to, posted numerous times on the platform about the police response to Novak's stabbing. He also offered to fund a private prosecution against the police and insulted the Hampshire police force involved for what he says was mishandling of the incident. In fact, the US State Department has also waded into that debate and offered condolences to Novak's family. It cited ideological conditioning and two-tiered policing as the reasons behind Novak's stabbing. A tunnel beneath the icy waters of the strait, one day linking the United States and Russia. Is that going to be the reality soon, connecting Asia and North America? A new development bringing that idea back into the spotlight? Russian presidential envoy saying Moscow and Washington are moving ahead with plans to continue designing a proposed underwater tunnel connecting Russia's Far East with Alaska. Dmitriev reportedly said a new agreement to advance the project's design work is expected to be signed soon. Let's break it down. The proposal reportedly envisions a rail and cargo corridor stretching roughly 110 kilometers beneath the strait. The narrow waterway that basically separates Russia and the United States by about 70 kilometers at its closest point. The project could reportedly cost around $8 billion and could be completed within 8 years. The idea of linking the two is not new. Political leaders have discussed a strait crossing for more than a century. During the Cold War, however, intense geopolitical rivalry between Washington and Moscow made such cooperation virtually impossible. Even after the Soviet Union collapsed, the concept remained largely theoretical. The proposal gained renewed attention last year when Dmitriev promoted the idea on social media and described it as a potential symbol of unity between the two countries. At the time, US President Donald Trump called the concept, quote-unquote, interesting idea. The project also surfaced ahead of a planned Trump-Putin meeting in Hungary in October 2025 that was later cancelled. Experts said the project could become more than an engineering achievement. It could create the first direct transportation link between North America and Eurasia, potentially open new trade routes and encourage economic cooperation between the two nations. History showing how major transport links can reshape economies. The Channel Tunnel connecting Britain and France, which opened in 1994, transformed travel and trade across the English Channel. The route now carries millions of passengers and millions of tons of freight every year, supporting significant cross-border economic activity and strengthening economic integration between the two countries. But the Strait project would face challenges, of course, on a completely different scale. Experts said funding, environmental concerns, sustained political cooperation between Moscow and Washington could present additional obstacles. The proposed route, cutting through one of the world's harshest environments, where temperatures can plunge far below freezing and sea ice dominating much of the year, the remote location would make construction, maintenance, and logistics exceptionally difficult and expensive. Engineers would also have to build supporting rail infrastructure across vast, sparsely populated regions of Alaska and eastern Siberia, where transportation networks remain limited. The distance between the strait and the nearest railway on the Russian side is nearly 3,000 kilometers away in Siberia. Similarly, on the American side, the nearest railway point in Alaska to the strait is around 850 kilometers. But renewed discussion suggests that one of the world's most ambitious infrastructure dreams is once again attracting serious attention, raising the possibility of a future link between the two countries and two continents that have long stood apart. West Asia remains on edge as the US-Iran deal continues to be elusive. While the US president has warned that the war could resume if US soldiers are killed, reports of an alleged explosion in Oman spur speculation of a potential escalation. A few hours earlier, Reuters reported that Oman briefly suspended crude oil operations at the terminal following a suspected explosion near offshore mooring berths. In fact, it added that the blast was caused allegedly by a drone attack. However, the government of Oman is yet to officially comment on this. Let's tell you why this is significant. Oman has long acted as a mediator between Washington and Tehran. It even hosted talks earlier between the two sides before the war started. In fact, the terminal is vital for Oman as it handles anywhere between 800,000 and 900,000 barrels of oil exports per day. It is located outside the Strait of Hormuz, where vessel movement has been minimal. Amid this, Iran claimed to have fired warning shots at USS Truxtun and USS Mason. According to the Iranian state media, these warships ignored radio warnings and approached the Strait of Hormuz. It added that these vessels left the Sea of Oman towards the Indian Ocean. But CENTCOM staunchly denied this claim, reportedly. In another development, US forces claim to have boarded a sanctioned vessel in the Indian Ocean as part of its mission to stop vessels from providing material support to Iran. Earlier, Trump revealed that he rejected sending U.S. special forces into Iran to retrieve its enriched uranium stockpile to avoid a quote-unquote Jimmy Carter moment. This was a reference to the failure of Operation Eagle Claw in 1980, which aimed at rescuing Americans held hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran.
You'd have to be there for 2 weeks. You'd need massive equipment. You'd have to airlift the equipment in. You know, you're in a war zone.
As uncertainty prevails, Iranians voicing their skepticism towards a possible deal to end the war due to the acute differences between both the sides.
In my opinion, there can be no agreement because the demands of both sides are very far apart. And if they were to reach an agreement, it would mean that all this war and campaigning would be useless, and America's hegemony would be called into question, and none of the goals for which it took this great action would be achieved.
And on the other hand, Israel continued to pound Lebanon even as it agreed to renew the ceasefire. Smoke was seen billowing over the southern Lebanese village of Kfar Tebnit as the IDF targeted Hezbollah. Heavy damage was seen in the city of Tyre as well, following an Israel strike. And while Tehran has been linking a deal to cessation of hostilities in Lebanon, Beirut is clearly not amused. In fact, the Lebanese Prime Minister called upon Iran not to use his country as a bargaining chip. Listen in.
If I may address a word to Iran, it is this: have mercy on our south. Stop treating it and its people as merely a bargaining chip to improve the terms of your negotiations. We are a nation that refuses to become a mere mailbox for others' messages or an open battleground for their wars. Lebanon is not a bargaining chip for anyone, and the south is not anyone's reserve front.
And with Israel persisting with its attacks on Lebanon and the lingering differences between the US and Iran over the key issues, it seems that early hopes of a deal remain a distant possibility as of now. It has been 37 years since the Tiananmen Square crackdown. Still, the event remains one of China's most sensitive chapters. And this year, families of victims say they have been barred from visiting the graves of their loved ones ahead of the anniversary, even as memorial events are held across the world. Our next report telling you more.
For decades, relatives of Tiananmen victims have marked June 4th with quiet tributes at a Beijing cemetery. But this year, members of the Tiananmen Mothers Group say authorities barred their annual gathering, allowing visits only under strict conditions and police supervision. While remembrance faced curbs in China, candlelight vigils lit up cities across the world. Hundreds gathered in Taiwan. Protesters rallied in Sydney, and tributes were held in several cities to honor the victims.
I believe that it's important that everyone continues to celebrate and commemorate the spirit of Tiananmen, of the students' uprising and their passion for democracy and human rights, especially as we face geopolitical tension and threats of our own here. And so that's why we should be commemorating this every year.
Every year I come here, and if I can, but this year I especially want to show I stand with Hong Kong people. For about 1 year, we staying in peaceful Sydney, but we suffered so much when we watched the protests and the depression happened in Hong Kong, and so many young people being bashed, beaten, arrested.
The Tiananmen protests began in April 1989 as a student-led movement calling for political reform, greater freedoms, and an end to corruption. The demonstrations quickly grew, drawing support from workers, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens. On June 3rd and 4th, Chinese troops moved into Beijing with tanks and armored vehicles to disperse the protests. Hundreds were killed, though the exact death toll remains disputed, and thousands were later arrested. More than 3 decades later, Beijing still continues to defend the crackdown as necessary to maintain order. Public discussion remains heavily restricted, commemorations face curbs, and the events of June 4th continue to be closely censored. The Tiananmen protest also saw an iconic moment when a protester wearing a white t-shirt and trousers with a shopping bag in hand stood in front of a column of PLA tanks to block them from leaving the area. He was nicknamed the Tank Man and soon became the symbol of peaceful resistance. As the Tiananmen anniversary passes each year, the contrast remains stark. Public commemorations across the world laced with strict silence at home. Yet for the families of the victims, the search for remembrance and recognition continues. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Tensions continue to simmer as Cambodia accuses Thailand of replacing Hindu icons with Buddha statues. We tell you all that you need to know about the growing row over the US Ebola center in Kenya. All this and lots more coming up. Israel's government is facing growing scrutiny over the priorities as such as the national elections draw closer at a time when communities in northern Israel reportedly are demanding recovery assistance after more than 2 years of the Hezbollah attacks. In fact, the parliament has approved a new law that extends tax benefits to 59 West Bank settlements, citing security risks, reportedly, similar to some Israeli towns located along the Gaza border. In fact, the parliament passed the legislation by a 32 to 23 vote. 32 to 23. The new law was lobbied by the finance minister, who in fact claimed West Bank residents have long been denied security-based benefits, despite living on what he called Israel's front line. In fact, the law will apply retroactively from January 2026 through the end of 2027. Israel's tax authority estimating the new law will cost $35 million per year. The law is viewed by experts as part of a broader effort to encourage growth in the West Bank settlements. That could further reduce the possibility of a future two-state solution with the Palestinians. Israeli opposition leaders, meanwhile, have accused Smotrich of channeling the state resources towards the settlement movement, a key part of his political support base. And the debate comes as international pressure continues to mount over the rise in settler violence in West Bank, reportedly. A recent United Nations report saying over 870 settler-related attacks have been recorded in 2026. That is an average of 6 settler attacks per day, reportedly. Palestinians in the West Bank also held a protest amid the growing settler row. Israeli soldiers could be seen confronting the Palestinians as they tried to reach their lands after accusing the settlers of seizing it, reportedly, in the southern occupied West Bank. Take a look.
We have been clashing with settlers for 4 or 5 months now on a daily basis. We appealed to people to help us confront them. People came with large numbers. We are defenders since the days of our ancestors.
At a time when northern communities in Israel along the Lebanon border say emergency aid remains stalled, local leaders in the north have repeatedly warned that budget cuts have further weakened recovery efforts in areas hit the hardest by the conflict with Hezbollah. At the same time, Netanyahu is losing ground in the electorally crucial north, reportedly. Let's break it down. A May poll conducted at Israel's Hebrew University and accessed by Reuters found that only 23% of northern voters would back the party in the next election, down from 35% in 2022. In fact, nearly 70% of the voters surveyed in the region said they disapprove of Israeli government's handling of the Lebanon war, reportedly a higher level of dissatisfaction than in other parts of the country. The poll showing the decline in the party support in the north is about 3 times steeper than elsewhere in Israel. About 3 times steeper than elsewhere in Israel, with the north accounting for around 1/5 of the electorate. And the findings, of course, are extremely significant. On to India now. It is set for yet another crucial election. This time, 27 seats of the Rajya Sabha are up for grabs. And while the NDA, the BJP-led NDA, will look to enhance its tally, Congress also looking to shore up its numbers. Our next report getting you the complete story. Take a look.
After the 5 state assembly polls, India is gearing up for yet another electoral battle. This time, 27 seats of Rajya Sabha are up for grabs. While the last date for filing nominations is June 8th, the poll will be held on June 18th. Only elected state assembly members can cast their vote in this election. At present, the BJP-led National Democratic Alliance holds 17 seats, out of which BJP alone has 12 MPs. While 4 seats are vacant, the rest belong to the opposition. One of the key candidates in the fray is Congress chief Mallikarjun Kharge. He submitted his nomination from Karnataka in presence of leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi. Apart from Kharge, Congress announced a list of 6 more candidates. Media and Publicity Department Chairman Pawan Khera and Mansoor Ali Khan will enter Rajya Sabha for the first time. Also, Praveen Chakravarti has been fielded from Tamil Nadu after Ally TVK allocated this seat to the Congress. Ex-MP Meenakshi Natarajan features on the list apart from Neeraj Dangi and Pranav Jha. On the other hand, BJP has named candidates for 11 seats, replacing all the incumbents. The names on the list include senior leaders Tarun Chugh and Rajneesh Agarwal. The party has also nominated 4 young candidates from Gujarat, two ex-state chiefs Rajasthan's Satish Punia and Arunachal Pradesh's Tai Tagak also made the cut. Sitting Manipur BJP Sharda Devi is also on the list. Apart from this, Debashish Samantre, who quit as a BJD MP in the last week of May, was nominated as well. Crucially, two sitting union ministers Ravneet Singh Bittu and George Kurian were not nominated by BJP. This has spurred speculation about a possible reshuffle in the union cabinet. A twist in the tale might be in the offing in the state of Jharkhand. The JMM-led alliance can win both seats going into the polls as it has 56 legislators. However, uncertainty prevails over the fate of one seat, as some Congress allies are believed to be upset. Also, the BJP has muddied the waters by hinting at fielding a candidate despite having just 24 members. So how are the results likely to pan out? As per the current tally, the ruling NDA is set to increase its strength by one seat to 19. This is mainly banking on Andhra Pradesh, where TDP and Janasena Party are set to win 4 seats unopposed. Overall, NDA's tally is likely to rise to 149. Congress will also gain, as it is likely to win 7 seats, up from 4 which it holds currently. On the whole, the opposition is set to lose 1 seat. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is from Southeast Asia. 5 months after the deadly clashes, tensions simmering between Thailand and Cambodia yet again. This time, Cambodia has accused Thailand of building 36 new Buddha statues while destroying Hindu ones, allegedly. Our next report telling you more.
Last year, Southeast Asia was rocked by a major conflict as Thailand and Cambodia engaged in 2 major rounds of deadly clashes over a long-standing border dispute. The devastation was widespread. Close to 150 people were killed. 650,000 persons were displaced at the peak of the conflict. While both sides agreed to a ceasefire on December 27th, tensions are simmering yet again. Cambodia lodged a formal protest, alleging that Thailand constructed 36 Buddha statues, flagpoles, roads and barbed wire barriers in disputed areas like Previ here. It accused Thailand of consolidating its control over unlawfully occupied Cambodian territory. However, there is a religious angle too. Cambodian Defense Minister Prak Sokhonn claimed that Buddhist statues had been built by destroying Hindu ones. For instance, he stated that a Vishnu temple was demolished. Bangkok, though, denied any ceasefire breach. It stressed that the statues serve as spiritual landmarks and a morale booster for troops and residents of the border areas. In December last year, a major row broke out as Thailand demolished a statue of Lord Vishnu along the disputed border. Back then, India too voiced concern, saying that such disrespectful acts hurt sentiments of followers around the world. 2 months ago, Cambodia also protested Thailand holding a ceremony at the ruins of the ancient Takwai temple. The ruins were taken over by Thailand during last year's conflict. This event was attended by Thailand's defense and cultural ministers. Previ temple also suffered considerable damage due to the clashes. This World Heritage Site was awarded to Cambodia in 1962. Amid this, a new maritime front has opened up. Both nations are staking claim to 10,000 square miles of sea in the Gulf of Thailand. This zone is estimated to hold oil and natural gas reserves worth nearly $300 billion. Cambodia has now sought United Nations mediation to resolve this dispute.
We have taken this step to protect Cambodia's sovereignty and maritime rights in accordance with international law. Cambodia has always sought to resolve disputes with our neighbors peacefully.
While Thailand has agreed to join the United Nations-led arbitration process, it remains to be seen whether both nations can achieve lasting peace. Bureau Report, World is One.
People from a town in central Kenya, where the US reportedly wants to set up an Ebola quarantine facility for its citizens, have strongly criticized the plan. They fear it will expose them to the virus, and that, according to them, it is indicative of double standards on part of America. In fact, Kenya's president, however, defending the establishment, saying the US government has aided to the tune of 1.8 billion Kenyan shillings in building the Ebola infrastructure. However, there has been rising nationwide anger in recent days. People in the central Kenyan town expressing annoyance over the plan for that US-funded Ebola quarantine center to be opened at a nearby airbase, reportedly.
I think opening an Ebola facility in Kenya, it's not a good idea because it's a very dangerous disease, and I think it should be just in America because they have all the facilities to take care of that.
Ebola is a very deadly disease. I think US is more capable of in terms of medical cares. So I think the US are supposed to take care of their citizens back in the US, but not in Kenya or any other part of Africa.
In fact, the center is said to be used to quarantine US and Kenyan citizens reportedly arriving from the country which is battling a deadly Ebola outbreak. Neighboring country. As of the 4th of June, remember, Congo Health Ministry reported 381 confirmed cases, 63 deaths, while 7 people have recovered from the disease. In Uganda, 16 cases confirmed cases have been reported, 1 death, 4 people have recovered reportedly. Meanwhile, the Kenyan president saying establishing the quarantine facility is the right thing to do.
One of the facilities that has now raised a bit of controversy is the facility we agreed to set up in conjunction with the Americans in one of our military air bases. And why have we done that? We have a huge American military contingent in Kenya, number one. Number two, we have set up the 23 other isolation places in Kenya with the support of friends, among them the Americans, our own resources, but also with the support of Americans. So the debate here is not about whether to set it up or not. The debate is, are we doing the right thing? Are we not? And I can tell you without fear of any contradiction, and I can look at everybody in the eye, Kenyan, including yourself, and tell you we are doing the right thing.
Satellite imagery, according to Reuters, showing the US government is moving ahead rapidly with setting up an Ebola quarantine facility despite the protest and the Kenyan court order blocking it, reportedly. Since the May 27th, a block of land totaling around 0.046 square kilometers or 11 acres within the Laikipia Air Base was cleared, according to satellite imagery seen by Reuters. And by the 4th of June, a collection of connected white tents had been set up in the middle of the clearing, reportedly, where the tarmac appears to have been laid. And there are further structures, earth-moving equipment, other vehicles also visible in the cleared section, which lies to the east of the runway, reportedly. The plan has triggered criticism that the US, according to the locals, is offloading the risk of caring for its own patients. At least 2 people were killed earlier this week in protests in that area. A Kenyan court first ordered work on the Ebola facility to be suspended on the 28th of May. The US Embassy in Nairobi has said it is working with the Kenyan government to resolve any objections. Our next story is about the humble bumblebee. It's often thought of as the traditional honeybee's bigger, hairier cousin, but new research suggesting it should be considered the smart one in the bee family as well. Let's tell you why. Researchers in Finland have published a new paper which pretty much changes our basic understanding of how bumblebee brains work. Yes, their brains. They created an experiment basically to mimic the 100-year-old box and banana problem. Let's break it down. That experiment put bananas just out of reach of some chimps, and the apes had a box placed next to them. The chimps basically realized that the box could be moved underneath the banana so they could reach it. And that is how it was discovered that apes are quite smart. Now just replace the banana with a tasty, sugary blue dot. Replace the box with a plastic foam ball. And that is the result when you have the modern bumblebee-friendly version of the box and banana experiment, reportedly. The researchers in Finland decided to see if the bees had some ingenuity, and the hovering hairballs delivered. In fact, the sugary blue dot was placed on the ceiling of a container. The chamber was too small for the bees to fly in, so they decided to roll out a different solution, quite literally. Almost 75% of the bees tested pushed the ball beneath the blue dot and then proceeded to climb the ball to reach their sweet target. The experiment showing that bumblebees have problem-solving abilities. So far, only seen in a handful of animals. Humans have known for a while that apes and elephants are quite bright, but this is the first time an insect has made it into this genius club, it seems. And this is despite the fact that a bumblebee has a brain the size of a sesame seed. The experiment only goes on to show that nature is full of surprises, and even something as tiny as a bumblebee can turn out to be much smarter than you think. And let's now talk about cockroaches. Giant cockroaches to rare African ants. Authorities across the world cracking down on a thriving illegal trade when it comes to these kinds of insects. It may appear to be harmless collector's items on the outside, but it can also become serious biosecurity threat. The latest, in fact, the latest bust coming from Australia. Biosecurity officials have carried out the country's largest ever seizure of illegal exotic invertebrates. More than 100,000 live exotic cockroaches were seized from a commercial breeder of New South Wales. Authorities say the cockroaches have an estimated value of over $100,000. These cockroaches, in fact, are considered to be among the world's largest cockroach species. Officials stress that these species cannot be legally kept, bred or sold because they cannot be legally imported into Australia. The Australian seizure coming just days after another high-profile crackdown on the growing trade in exotic insects, this time involving a tiny but highly sought-after ant species in East Africa. The Kenyan authorities, meanwhile, recently secured the conviction of a Chinese national after more than 2,200 live ants were discovered, hidden inside specially designed tubes in luggage destined for China, reportedly. And officials said the shipment included around 2,000 giant African harvester ants, a rare species highly prized by exotic pet collectors. Investigators say such ants can fetch hundreds of dollars each on the international market, fueling a lucrative smuggling network stretching from East Africa to Europe and Asia. Kenyan authorities warning that cases of ant smuggling are on the rise. Traffickers are treating rare insects like high-value contraband, reportedly. And officials say the trade also poses serious risks to biodiversity and agriculture, prompting tougher enforcement action. And since it is World Environment Day, for decades now, mangrove forests were disappearing from coastlines around the world. But now scientists say one of nature's most powerful climate defenders, is making a comeback. A new global study has found mangroves are recovering faster than expected. Our next report telling you more.
Along the fragile coastlines of the world, be it the Gulf Coast of Louisiana or the tropical shorelines, thousands of kilometers away, mangrove forests are growing back. For years, these coastal ecosystems were in retreat. Cleared for aquaculture, agriculture and development, mangroves disappeared from large stretches of shoreline, weakening natural defenses against storms, erosion and rising seas.
So some human activities are targeted on these precious ecosystems, like mangroves are along coastal region. So coastal region could be used for port construction, could be used for the agricultural ponds expansion, and also for some oil palm trees plantation. So for some economic targets, the mangroves are targeted by human activities for deforestation.
But new research published in the journal Science suggests the story may be changing. Scientists from Tulane University say mangrove forests are making a global comeback, thanks in part to conservation and restoration efforts that are beginning to reverse decades of losses. From the climate lens, mangroves remain among the planet's most effective natural carbon sinks. They absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and lock it away in their roots and soils for decades, sometimes centuries. But their value extends far beyond carbon. These tangled forests act as living coastal infrastructure. Their root systems hold shorelines together, reduce erosion, absorb wave energy, and help buffer communities from storm surges and sea level rise. Researchers say the recovery demonstrates that conservation efforts can work. But they caution against seeing the rebound as a reason for complacency.
Because the future is uncertain for mangroves. They're still under threat in many parts of the world by human activity. So now we've got to build on this, right? We've shown that it works. And let's make sure that we're still having the same success story in 10, 20, 50 years.
The recovery, scientists argue, is not the end of the story, but a proof that restoration is possible if protection continues. In a world grappling with rising seas, stronger storms, and accelerating climate change, the return of mangroves offers a success story rooted in visible recovery along the world's coastlines and not in future promises.
Our next story is about what is being called the world's largest floating city. What would be the world's largest ship, and what would it look like? How many people can it accommodate? It is a project with a vision to become the first city at sea, reportedly, which will be as self-sufficient as it tries to be, with not just homes and hospitals, but also shopping centers, a 15,000-seat sports stadium, a convention center, a 2-story food court, among the many facilities it is envisioned to have. And wait till you hear this, also its own airport, reportedly. It is a grand vision, basically. The Freedom Ship, as it's being called, it was originally conceived in the late 1990s by an engineer called Norman Nixon, reportedly, and it's back at the spotlight under the leadership of the CEO of Freedom Cruise Line International. And as you can tell, if it becomes reality, the vessel would be unlike anything ever seen in maritime history, carrying up to 80,000 people, reportedly. And the vision also includes the vessel continuously traveling around the world, completing a full circumnavigation every 2 to 3 years, reportedly, while spending most of its time in international waters beyond the jurisdiction of any single country, reportedly, as per the vision. In fact, it would also be more than 4 times longer than the largest cruise ships of today, reportedly, rising 25 stories above the waterline. That would mean it would majorly dwarf even the mega cruise ships of today, but challenges remain when it comes to many, including engineering and logistical, reportedly. Four teams will finally fulfill their dreams of playing the FIFA World Cup for the first time. And we're telling you all about this list of storied nations that have competed in the biggest sporting event in the world. Let's start off with the smallest nation to ever qualify